projects, and so it opens with the opening letter. This past spring, the 2024 building project referendum did not receive voter support. The referendum proposed reconfiguring the district with four schools with the intermediate school. The Board of Education respects the community's decision and will not pursue this plan at this time. Then we move to the current state of things. Since then, we adjusted grade configurations to better utilize existing space in each school. This reconfiguration decreases the amount of work and investment needed to remodel the elementary school. Ultimately, any plan going forward must reflect the priorities of our taxpayers. Therefore, please take a few minutes to complete this survey. The rest of this front page is explaining confidentiality, telling folks how they can take the survey, to the website they can go to, or where to mail it if they want to take it on paper. And then it is signed by you as the board members. All right. On page 2, we start out with the respondent information, getting some demographics. Most importantly, are you an employee of the district, or do you have children attending the district? That allows us to break it down into groups of staff, parents, and non-parents, non-staff, which are your largest population, and we can use that to really look ahead at a potential referendum outcome. Below that, we get to financial background. And this is where we go into a bit of the trend for the mill rate in the district. And we explain the district's share of local property taxes is calculated using a tax mill rate. Our rate has dropped by more than 30% since the 2014-15 school year. In recent years, the board has taken the opportunity to prepay debt to save on interest expenses. We then also compare the mill rate to surrounding districts. Based on the most recent data available from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction, the school district of Osceola's property tax mill rate is below the state average and most school districts in our area.
Can we make a little disclaimer though, where it says that the mill rate has dropped 30% and it's because the equalized value or the housing markets have increased? Because that's why it has gone down?
We could, it gets, the more words we put in here, the more complex it is for someone to understand reading quickly. Is that just you want to make sure folks understand the reasons that has dropped?
Yes.
Okay. I'll highlight that and think through maybe the best ways to explain that in just a sentence with our team. But definitely we can try to get something toward that idea.
Jan, to be fair though, that's one of the reasons it dropped.
It is.
Not the only. You had the
That's
operational
weird.
referendum that came off, you had changes in state aid. There's been a variety of reasons why it's dropped. Not that is the primary, I would agree with you, but it's not the only.
But it's still somewhat misleading saying it just dropped 30%.
But it does because it did drop 30%.
Because
It's not misleading, it's just doesn't have all the info.
it doesn't tell the true story.
Not the true story, the whole story.
Right.
I think it's a true story because it did drop by 30%. So that is true.
This is language we do use in quite a few surveys around the state, or have used around with different districts, just explaining that mill rate drop. Because I think, again, as you all were speaking to, it gets pretty complicated once you get into the funding formulas and all of the reasons that lead to that. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty complex set of formulas. And really the mill rate is just all that you as the school district have control over. Everything else is out of your hands.
Correct. Okay.
Thank you for changing the colors. This is much easier to see. It reminds me of Christmas, but I like it.
And we're almost to the season, right? No, never too early to start thinking ahead. If we move on to page 3, then we get into the plan for the elementary school, the revised plan from what was previously not approved. We explained the board partnered with an architect and construction firm to develop a new plan to update the elementary school, originally built in 1963 with additions in 1965 and 1989. This plan includes the following project. We've got a couple headers here, replacing building systems and infrastructure and renovate learning areas. And then we get into some of the specific projects under each of those. So we've got update entrances to better monitor and control visitor access, update security cameras in the intercom system, replace heating, ventilation, plumbing, and electrical systems that are original to the building / aging, inefficient, and or at risk of failure. Reconfigure parent and bus drop-off and pickup areas / parking lots to better separate traffic from pedestrians. Add air conditioning. Replace the roof, because patching is no longer an option. Update cracked and worn floors. Replace inefficient and aging windows and doors. Update light fixtures to make them more energy efficient. Replace the outdated fire alarm system. Install age-appropriate playground areas, and remove asbestos-containing materials. Under renovate learning areas, we will renovate classrooms to better serve students in special education, resize classrooms for our youngest students, including adding nearby restrooms, and update areas that do not comply with current Americans with Disability Act codes. Any questions on that list?
It's not so much on the list, but bathrooms. How did we figure that, is there bathrooms in 4K and K classrooms, or?
Correct.
No, so not nearby.
Well, they're not in grade 1.
No, I'm asking if in 4K and K, if they would be in the classrooms.
That's why I think nearby is the common term,
I
because.
believe for the most part, they are in the classroom.
Okay.
I can't remember if it's exclusively everyone.
Not that it needs to change on here, just for my own understanding, because that's kind of what I've been.
You are correct that the goal is to have an individual unisex bathroom attached to all 4K and 5K. If for whatever reason we can't, we try to get one directly across the hall or something.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, and then the final page of this version of the survey focuses on the funding support. And so we share that the cost to update Osceola Elementary School is too large to be funded from our annual budget. Instead, we would need to secure a voter-approved facilities referendum. This type of referendum is common. In the last 10 years, voters in 67% of Wisconsin school districts, including Osceola, have approved funding to update their school building. The table shows the estimated annual tax impact for various property values. Financing assumes a multi-phase borrowing plan repaid over 21 years at interest rates of 4.75 to 5.25%. We've got a table with a few different property value amounts that show the estimated annual tax impact. We've also got another version of that tax mill rate graph that shows the impact, and we explain in that box next to it, if approved, the referendum would increase the estimated mill rate by $14 per $100,000 of property value. The projected rate is estimated to remain below the 2023-24 level.
I just want to interject and say that these numbers were before we had any indication of visual or October 1st equalized value. So
Yes.
It's coming, we knew we were going to change the numbers based off what was going to happen on October 15th, but it's not actually 585, it's coming in at 563. Because we built our model off of a 4% increase on equalized value and it came in at 9.18%, I believe. So it'd be 563, adding that 14 cents in. Again,
We will.
not finalized until October 15th, but just for our own knowledge
But
tonight.
it would be the correct number.
We're trending that way.
So
yes.
even with approval, the mill rate will theoretically be less than the prior year.
Not the current year, but the prior.
The 24, 25.
That's my only question there was like,
Well, not sorry.
it gets tricky because I was like, 23, 24, wait, we're at 585, but no, that,
Yeah, so the 585 on this is 563.
Correct.
And then the final bar would go to 577. So I just spoke. We're still well below
So
23,
you
24.
got it.
You have to
Yep.
remember it's gonna be for the.
right, and that's where it just, even me got
Yep.
confused on it, so. Okay.
And we'll, once those numbers are officially final, we'll certainly get that updated in the survey. Thank you for mentioning that. Then we asked, would you support a $27.2 million referendum to fund the revised plan? We got a definitely yes, probably yes, undecided, probably no, and definitely no scale. And then we ask if you are undecided or do not support the plan, what are the reasons? And we go through the list of most of the projects that are on the previous page outlined in the plan, so that if you do hear nil, you can understand what projects are holding people up or that they don't necessarily support. So it'll give you some data to look back at, potentially to trim a referendum plan if necessary.
Question.
And then, go ahead.
I don't love the wording of would you support a 27.2 million referendum to fund the revised plan? I think it needs to say something about the elementary school or, cause it's,
To ask what you're funding.
yeah.
Okay. How about,
I know what it's funding, but you know what I mean? And then I was like, oh, that's the first time that it's actually, you know, saying the words of it. And it says revised plan, Osceola Elementary School on the page before it. But I think that words, I'm all for lesser words is more, but.
how about to fund the revised Osceola Elementary School plan?
Thank you, I like it.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
then just change the title on page 3 to match.
Yeah, title on page 3 to match
To
then.
make it consistent.
Yeah, thank you.
Good change.
Do we have to put on there like any timeline, like in April would be support, or like,
I don't know that we're, I mean, that's the question is we're getting data just in general. There's no timeline yet, so I don't know that you wanna pigeonhole yourself yet. That's my opinion.
I agree. I just didn't know, people might wanna know when we're talking about doing it, you know, but I get that too.
That's just my opinion.
So we have to put a disclaimer in here that we are, in 24, 25. We are letting that extra million, whatever, for the debt, and that's why this gets to 14 cents. Because if you look at the next year, if you look at the second year of this, it's gonna be 145, 145. If you look at the debt schedule, so yeah, the first year it might just be 0.14, but what's the longer term of it? And I know it will all depend on the interest rates and everything, but it's because we're gonna levy that extra $1 million for the debt payment to use against that, issuance. That's why it's 14.
We do, on page 2, we do explain that the board has been taking the opportunity to prepay debt to save on interest expenses in recent years. Beyond that, you know, generally, as you mentioned, it's hard to predict out exactly what that mill rate impact will be beyond a year, given state budget cycles and things like that. I guess that would depend on how confident you are in those estimates going forward, and generally we do just share a year out on these surveys.
Do you like the line on page 2 that says in recent years the board has taken opportunity to discuss the that is there, so that's helpful.
I'm hesitant to try and go into more of the why of that, Jan, here, just because I think that stuff we talk about when we're meeting with them or having sessions, but to try and explain all of that, I think it's complicated. And we lose
On this page.
on this, right here.
Yeah.
That's
Generally, we do try to keep the surveys really as simple as possible so that we don't lose folks as they're making their way through it, so that you hear from as many members of your community as you can. I think a lot of that information can also be shared in other communications, on a referendum website page, things like that.
And it should be.
Moving.
And it will.
Any other questions on the 4-page version before we look at an 8-page version that we put together?
I'm kind of curious, and I don't want to say your looks, but about having the Chieftain logo on our envelope, or how is this being distributed? There's no logo. And that's fine, we're kind of moving to this too, but
Where's the vote?
yeah. I didn't
So
know.
you're saying you want the emblem, is what you're saying?
Yeah. I don't know where, I don't have that, like, this looks so nice to me, and I don't wanna crowd this, I don't know if this the back, but then it's the back, you know.
That's a good sign. But like I said, if it gets mailed out, where do you put it from?
That's how it's getting there.
How is it getting mailed, Scott? Like, is it in an envelope? Is it just being folded, or?
So the 4-page survey, this version of the survey would get stuffed into an envelope. The 8-page version gets folded and has an address page as a part of your 8 pages.
Yep, thank you. I could easily have an emblem here.
But
But I
you're
don't know
asking
what
if the
the-
envelope can have the other logo.
Yeah, could the envelope have the emblem, or does it need to be on here somewhere?
I would have to look into what the printers can do on an envelope. I have to talk with Bev, who handles our printing logistics, to see if the printer you all are working with would have that ability. I'm not certain on the envelope, and we can certainly adjust logos as requested as necessary from your all end.
There's room on the cover letter. There's
Yeah,
two
sure, for
logos
sure.
if we want to.
Yep,
Thank you, but that's just my.
absolutely. Nope.
So this is gonna end up then being more expensive if you went with a 4-page and you did an envelope, because now you have the survey and now the envelope, and if you did the 8 pages.
I believe it is slightly more expensive, Scott, correct, to to mail
Yeah,
the 4-page.
They actually have to pay people to stuff the envelopes with the 4-page version.
But you will likely get a much higher response
Right.
rate
It's a
in
tempo
exchange
rate.
for that investment, so.
Yep.
Well, then what's gonna go down in this spot down here?
That's where they can write.
But you're promoting people to do it all online.
Yeah, but they mail them in, no handwrite comments there. So the people that mail in, we need to give them some room on the page to write.
And we do get, I would say 20 to 30% of responses, depending on the community, that are still mailed in. So it's not an insignificant number of folks that want to sit down at their coffee table and fill it out. So we certainly have to read plenty of handwriting.
Yep.
Next.
Next
Are we
one.
ready to go to the 8 page? Okay, well, looking to think, thinking big picture, thinking about how we know that we have operating costs that we need to consider, and we're sending out a survey, it seems to me that we would probably want to test our community in that regard as well. So operating and a capital question. Again, totally up to you, but we did reduce by 1.3 million, and we still know that we are operating at a deficit. And we believe that our community should be able to weigh in on where they wanna go. I feel it would be very difficult to be sitting in this chair and be renovating the elementary school and reducing staff at the same time. That would be very, very hard personally for me, and also I think to build trust in the community. Because it's hard for people to understand that there's 2 pots of money that we're drawing from when you talk capital and operation. And with having that referendum, I feel like we had a good plan, and we took the full 3 million because we knew we'd be coming in this year, and we knew that that's how we were gonna move through this year. But as we look forward, there's definitely a deficit that's sitting there, and without asking, we don't know what people are thinking.
And we don't know the biennium budget, right? Because we're starting the new 2-year of the biennium.
I think we talked a little too, I think I should speak for most, I think it's a little disingenuous if you are thinking you need an operational and want to consider an operational, to go out for facilities not acknowledging that you have an operational need, and then come back a year later with operational. I think you lose a little credibility by doing that.
And also question-wise, we have limited questions you can ask, so we could ask them at the same time. The question is going to be, if we asked an operational question, do we still have that if it fails, that you are then frozen or disciplined? Yes, that still happen in our district, so that's just something for you all to be aware of. So doing it in a survey where it feels a little bit safer feels like a really good idea as well. But again, we haven't talked about this at this table in the past, we've talked about the deficit, but we haven't talked about surveying. But we're getting close to the timeline, and then talking in our meetings, it was like, yes, this seems like a very reasonable ask. Let's develop something, let y'all see it, let it resonate with you, and then we can come back to the next meeting, so we've extended the timeline a little bit. But we found some pros in that, like you don't really want your surveys to land on Thanksgiving, because people don't go through them. But go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, no, thank you for that setup. Yeah, we were able to push the timeline of it back, and we're in good shape. So with this version of the survey, as mentioned, we do get into the operational side of things. That made us adjust the opening letter a bit, so folks who would get the survey understand what it is they're gonna see inside. So
Again, we haven't talked about this at this table in the past, we've talked about the deficit, but we haven't talked about surveying. But we're getting close to the timeline, and then talking in our meetings, it was like, yes, this seems like a very reasonable ask. Let's develop something, let y'all see it, let it resonate with you, and then we can come back to the next meeting, so we've extended the timeline a little bit. But we found some pros in that, like you don't really want your surveys to land on Thanksgiving, because people don't go through the mail. But go ahead, Scott.
yeah, no, thank you for that setup. Yeah, we were able to push the timeline of it back, and we're in good shape. So with this version of the survey, as mentioned, we do get into the operational side of things. That made us adjust the opening letter a bit, so folks who would get the survey understand what it is they're gonna see inside. So we start off with the school district of Osceola needs your input to address two challenges. One, funding from the operational referendum voters approved in 2022 was used to maintain student programs and services. This funding has expired, and the district cut $1.3 million this past spring. Without replacement funding, more budget cuts will be needed. Two, this spring, a facilities referendum did not receive voter support. The plan would have reconfigured the district into 3 schools by expanding the intermediate school. The Board of Education respects the community's decision and will not pursue this plan at this time. Instead, we've developed a lower cost option to address the challenges of the aging elementary school. And then similar statements about the confidentiality, that we explain the budget situation, facility options, and we ask folks please take a few minutes to complete this survey. The bottom half of this page is the same as the other one. So then page 2 gets into some financial background. So we start off by explaining that there are 2 types of referendum funding the Osceola School District will ask local voters to consider. An operational referendum asks voters to approve additional funds to help pay for compensation, utilities, technology, busing, and classroom materials. Since 1998, 86% of school districts in Wisconsin have pursued this type of referendum. This is the type of referendum explored on this page. 2, a facilities referendum allows a school district to take out a loan, issue debt, to pay for major improvements. Since 1998, nearly 90% of school districts in Wisconsin have pursued this type of referendum. This is the type of referendum explored later in the survey. Then we move on to more specifics about your financial situation.
Hey Scott.
Yes.
I noticed from the other version of this one that the respondent went from the beginning to the end. I'm sure it's purposeful, but.
A lot of that is having to do with spacing for the
Okay.
other items in your survey.
Okay.
So in this one, we wanted to dive right into operational, and that took a whole page without room for respondent information. Whereas when we had that page in the other version, we had about a half page of information. Though that tends to go at the end of surveys or at the beginning, it really varies based on space. In this case, I also think there's a lot of logic for folks reading that opening letter, understanding that there's 2 challenges, and then getting right into that first challenge.
Thank you.
In the print version, they'll have the 2 pages related in the opening. So when you open it up, you'll have your 2 operating pages, and then you flip it, you'll have your 2 debt page or capital pages in the print version.
Got it. Thank you.
Versus being up front and back.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt, for explaining that. So then we share that the district faces 3 financial challenges. Funding from the state has not kept up with increasing costs for transportation, utilities, compensation/benefits, and services for students in special education. In fact, it has been 16 years since we received the first student funding increase that kept pace with inflation. Over the last 10 years, enrollment has dropped by more than 23%. State funding is tied to enrollment. Therefore, the fewer students we have, the less money we receive. This is not unique to Osceola. Across Wisconsin, more than 70% of school districts have fewer students now than they did 10 years ago. While we have made reductions in response to this decline, it is not enough to allow us to sustain our student programs and services. Finally, in 2022, Osceola area voters approved a referendum to provide additional funds to the district. This funding expired earlier this year. In response, the district cut $1.3 million, including reducing administration, teachers, and support staff. If the community does not support a new operational referendum, the district will need to make more cuts. Therefore, the district is asking the community to consider a referendum that provides whatever amount you all determine each year for however many years to maintain course offerings, programs, services, and student opportunities, provide competitive compensation to attract and retain high-quality staff, and pay for annual building maintenance to avoid expensive repairs. And then we ask, would you support the operational referendum for however many years and explain the tax impact of that, with that definitely yes to definitely no scale. So then the next page, which is Matt said in the print version, will be the facing page when they open it, like the booklet, is cost cutting options. So we say if voters do not support the operational referendum, budget cuts will be needed. The district does not endorse or recommend any of the following, but we must consider all options. So this page goes through a few, pieces of the district budget and asks folks to say whether those should be areas the district should look at for cuts. So this will give you a good idea of what the staff, your parents, and your non-parents, non-staff are focused on if you do have your budget.
So what fiscal year are you guys thinking that we would have to go to a rough operating referendum? Would it be next year or the following year?
Well, because in April of 2025, that would be our only ask, because there's no, November, it would be April of 2025.
Otherwise, 26.
Correct, it would have to be during April of 26.
But we're at a deficit this year, so I'm assuming we'll be a deficit next year. Well, we're not.
True.
I mean.
Not with that attitude.
They'd have to, I don't see the funding changing, and it hasn't changed.
Right.
I think the funding formula is gonna be what it is. Yes, Evers made that provision, but, it's still not gonna be enough. So that's why I'm asking if, would we have to go next April for an operation, which really doesn't take effect until the 25-26 school year? It's not like we could really wait for the 26-27, because we'd really be into the fund balance, correct?
Unless you adjust your fund balance policy, our fund balance policy is 20 to 30%. Some districts say 10 to 15, some say not dropping under 10, so that would be, as a board, something for you to decide.
The benefit of going is that if the facilities referendum is proposed, you're gonna be doing all the work of communications anyway.
Right.
Mailers, and if it's not successful, you have one more year to come back in 26 and not have to go 2 years potentially into fund balance, if that's the valve you're gonna use.
So, I mean, so you're really thinking that we would go in April for an operating referendum?
Well, ultimately, the
Yeah,
board's
you-
I know,
decision,
But I
the
think ideally,
recommendation from them, but yes.
it's
I'm just
for me,
trying
I
to
would-
get an idea of what
Right.
timeframe you guys are thinking.
It would be very, very difficult to say building project is more important than people. And we did a lot of reductions last year, and to think that we could do equivalent to what we did, that would really impact our students and programs.
There just is, when you think about, like, we have 75 kids in kindergarten, but the high school still has over 500 students. Right now, K-8, we only have 2 grades above 100. So as that continues to decline, right, it's gonna impact the high school. But right now, they're staffed appropriately. You don't put in your budget model, oh, we're gonna reduce by, because we don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of like the state budget and enrollment. As I talk to my superintendent friends, we're all having the same conversations about marketing to open enrolled kids, which means we're all fighting for fewer kids, which is really tough.
And as a board, there's no reason to survey at the end of 2024 if you're not gonna go to an operating referendum until 2026. That data is no good. That's too much lag between when you get the data and when you'll be asking.
So that's why, to me, jumping forward now and having the conversation is super important. Because we've looked at the budget, we know, and I agree with you, I don't believe that suddenly we're gonna have a whole different state funding for schools.
Well, the state would have to have a lot of revenue to try to improve that, and with the way the economy has gone this year, with inflation slowing down, they aren't gonna have all this excess money that they've had in previous years.
And they're really shaking the tree right now, everything that I am engaged in, talking about trying to get special ed funding to 60%. Special ed funding to 60%. So we've done our model, and please know, like, we've looked at numbers for what would be the amount that we would need to do very few cuts, to do 0 cuts, except the ones that are necessary based on enrollment, because I think that that's a whole other factor, and to do some. So what are those? So we have been playing with numbers, we've been looking at numbers, but this didn't feel like, that felt like way too far along, because y'all have to decide, we said we didn't wanna go to an 8-page survey, because it was too much content, and we wanted to get results. And here I am saying, can we go to an 8-page survey so we get more information, so that we can be really sure that our community understands where we are right now, and that we're being as transparent as possible. It's just hard in the survey, we can't put all the details, Jan.
I know.
Like, it just, so please know, like, in my mind, it's if you want more information about the survey, here's our website that goes deeper into A, B, and C. And I think that would be really an important hand-in-hand piece for us to do.
So if doing this, I mean, you guys would probably be looking at, not saying it's definite, April of 25, ballot for
Okay.
an operating.
What if the survey results come back and they say definitely no, I want it?
That's my thought too.
Right.
And the other thing, just to be completely clear, like this page, the cost-cutting options, these are culture killers internally. When people see their department and their stuff listed here as, so please know I recognize that as well. But I also, if we don't ask, and then we go.
Yeah.
And if we do ask and we get a yes, we feel a little bit better, but that may not happen, but if we get a no, then what do we do?
We also have to have it in here because people, like, what does the budget cut look like? Well, this is what could possibly be affected by it.
Well, and our friends at School Perceptions have been very good at getting me lots of samples. I'm like, show me something else. Please show me something else. And this is the uniform ask. The only thing that's not on here, and I'm gonna say it out loud so that the community doesn't have to say it to us, should the pool be on here? Because every time we talk about cost cutting, well, maybe we should close the pool. So I'm just gonna say that out loud for you all to think about before we come back. That should be one of our cost cutting options. And then if you look at me and say, well, how much would that save us? I'll say, gosh, I don't know, because I don't know how much all of these would save us. So we've had lots of honest conversations as team about what should be on this list and what shouldn't. And this is pretty standard.
And it serves two purposes. It gives the community some sense of what you may have to do if they aren't supportive. And it hopefully doesn't come out across as a threat, because it isn't, right? You're just laying it out. But if the inverse is, if you do end up having to make cuts, you now have data from the community to suggest where they believe you should make cuts. So there's kind of two benefits to it, I think, is it's not just, it helps us get a referendum passed.
It's so hard for me, all of it is, cause I think, you know, we talk about, we do a survey, we follow what the survey says, there's a reason we ask people. So then if we get to that, you do, and they say, yep, cut elementary school specials, like say that's the highest rated one on here, but then it gets time to cutting, and we don't cut that one, then are people gonna be mad at that, even though it was better at the time to cut technology updates instead? Does that make sense? Like, I just,
And to me, that's a communication piece too, because there's so many other moving variables in that.
but so many people will say, the survey said this, and now you're not doing it.
I don't disagree.
It's likely some combination of all of them in small bites, not all of it coming in one or two categories.
And what I'm sick even looking at, so we just hope we don't even get to that point, but
But they're not even like rating what would be their,
they're not rating, but.
But it
and that's just the
it takes
options,
your
right?
yes, no list and says the community does not support this one, so we're taking this one off the table.
Yeah.
But it might say so many percent for yes to this
Yeah,
one versus
right.
that one.
Is there a thought as to operational referendum X dollars for X years?
Well, the dream would be, Scott's, we've had lots of conversations, right, Scott, and Max heard me say this multiple times. I have looked at our data and we have went to our voters 6 times in the last 10 years, asking them for dollars. So, for me, I would love to be able to, and Shannon and I've had many conversations, go 5 years. Have a 5-year ask and say, at 5 years, we won't come back, which means that we will live within this. And again, we don't.
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5
Not
years.
5 years?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
I was like,
5 years,
whoa.
and we will live within this, whatever number we decide, and do what we need to do with specify kids. And also recognizing that if something does change at the state, because 5 years is a really long time. The other benefit is we'd be halfway through another biennium, so we would have more information as opposed to starting fresh. The negative to that, of course, is if something changes, then what are you gonna do? Well, the beauty to that is you don't have to take all the dollars. So again, that is,
Which we left dollars on the table.
Which you have
last
a
time we did
history
this. Yep. Yep, we sure did.
So do you have kind of an estimate of what the dollar amount might be per year?
I do, it may not match Shannon's, but yes.
I guess big picture is.
Yes, we are there because this is the part that's important.
From the survey perspective, does the board have the appetite and interest
In doing.
in exploring the
Cause
operational?
I'm assuming now the rest of it is
It's pretty
exactly
much
the
the
same.
same. Yep.
There's some small differences, but it gifted the same projects and ideas.
But I think it's important, Scott, to finish going through it because there are some differences that are
Yeah.
important.
If we get to page 4 here, this is one of the differences. So we were able to add a page that just, rather than presenting it as a plan, it presents the challenges first at the elementary school. So this is the elementary school challenges page. Osceola Elementary School was built in 1963 with additions in 1965 and 1989. A facilities assessment identified the following needs. And so a lot of the projects correspond to the challenges outlined on this page, but we explain that updates are needed to improve building safety and security. The plumbing, air circulation, and electrical systems are original to the building, inefficient, and at risk of failure. The building is not air conditioned, and the heating system is nearing the end of its service life. Classrooms are outdated and too small for our youngest learners. Areas for students with special needs, no appropriate restrooms, and lack needed space and equipment. Pedestrians, cars, and buses should be better separated in drop-off pickup areas. There is not enough parking and the asphalt needs to be replaced. Playground equipment needs to be replaced with age-appropriate structures to improve accessibility for all students. Areas of the school do not comply with Americans with Disabilities Act codes. The fire alarm system is outdated and needs to be replaced. Lighting is inefficient. Finally, many doors, and ceilings are original and need to be replaced. So this list sort of gets at a little more background about some of the challenges the building faces. And then we explain these projects cannot be paid for in our annual budget. Instead, we would need to secure funding through a facilities referendum. And then this is a question we do like to have when we have space. for a challenges page like this is before we've outlined a plan, before we've outlined cost, we just ask, would you support the district pursuing a facilities referendum? We think of this as the permission slip, and it's really a question just to your residents. Are they open to you all exploring the idea of a facilities referendum to address the challenges on this page? And then they'll tell you how they feel about the plan you came up with, but this gives you data on whether you can even get started on a plan, and if you hear no to the plan, whether there's going to be interest in another revised plan, if it came to that.
So that page should look really familiar to our prior elementary surveys,
I
in
don't
terms of
love
laying out
that.
the challenges.
I like the challenges there, I don't know that about that question there, but
I see the reason behind it as a.
If we get a yes here and a no to the tax impact, we start to get some correlation between people are understanding that you have needs, they're just not agreeing with the solution or the cost. If we get a no here and a no there, then we get
I
less to go with.
did notice that on the first plan that we looked at where it has as a revised plan and then this one has the challenges, that one still has the line in there of remove asbestos containing materials, and that isn't mentioned on here as a challenge.
So yeah, we could add that here. We could say that some areas include asbestos. I believe, still have that in the plan that's outlined on the next page.
Okay, as long as, sure, I didn't flip it over yet, but it's a costly removal, so it has some value, yeah. I'll flip it
We
over.
can definitely consider
I'll
adding that to that.
just flip it over, it's fine.
So this page is very similar.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's exactly.
the header is just revised plan.
Hey, look, asbestos, never saw it coming.
What was that?
Nothing.
Okay. After the spring referendum failed, the board partnered with an architectural firm to develop a new plan to update the elementary school. And we've got the same list of projects that we had on the other survey here. So as you can see right there at the bottom, we do have remove asbestos containing materials.
Worst spoiler
And then the funding support page, which it looks mostly similar, though, so we explain the table again. We took out the paragraph explaining what a facilities referendum is, because we've referenced that previously now in the document. And we added the sentence, I think Becky mentioned this, but if both referendums outlined in this survey receive voter approval, the district will not ask for another referendum for at least 5 years. So we wanted to add that before we get to the second ask here. And as you can see, again, we'll have to adjust the graph for the updated numbers, but this graph now shows the impact of both the operational and the facilities referendums on that final bar in different colors. But then the bottom of the page is the same. And then the 7th page is your respondent information. Thank you for your participation. And then the final page, page 8, is the mailer page. So that's really for the post office, but this, in the 8-page version where it just gets folded up, this is where the address goes and what folks see when it lands on their table, so they know that a school survey was enclosed.
where is it going to show what the amount will be for people, the impact, if, say, both referendums pass?
So we outline the operating impact on the operating page, and then in that box it says the estimated mill rate would increase by an additional, whatever that number, that 14 cents. So then folks, we hope, can do the math. I guess it can get complicated to try to add it up and explain. If you feel that we should do that, we could definitely look at it. The graph will show it though, with the 2 colors on that final bar. It'll show the total impact.
You also end up with the potential that they say, so there's risk in both ways. They say yes, yes, and then we find out we fail and people say, I never did the math, I didn't realize that it was in addition to. So that's a risk there. The risk of surveying them as operating question is a standalone number, The capital question, we clearly spell out, it's the operating plus the capital for a new total, and test it that way, is if they say no to the operating, that survey, they're gonna say no to the capital, and now we really don't have a true standalone set of feedback on the capital question.
Correct.
Which is some of what we heard when Hudson failed their operating but passed their capital. People hadn't done the calculus of it was it was more tax impact than they thought.
Yeah. It's really complicated, but I respect the need for needing to have community input on both of it, it's just, I feel like getting rid
I will say this is how we have traditionally tested two questions like this. If it's capital and capital, it's different, then we can do the math, and
Right.
then you as a board are prioritizing. We're prioritizing project A over project B, so you intentionally make project B more expensive. That's different. This, we can't really do that with, so. This is probably, Scott, been done 100 times by school perceptions in this manner?
Yep, I would say so. This is our usual method when we're testing an operational and a capital. And we do try to really stress that additional with the underlining and with that graph showing them both together. So folks can understand that they are additive. But as Matt said, if you want separate data on the capital, we really can't do the addition, you know, down in the box.
And I think there's too many words here to do it the other way of asking one question at the end. Would you support only operating, only capital, operating and capital? We're 8 pages and too many thousands of words in to think people are gonna remember it all, I'm afraid. Which would be the other way to get to your point, but I think that's a little risky because of how dense the survey is.
I also think though, would you support the 27.2 million referendum to fund the revised plan for which needs to be changed again?
I'll add in Osceola Elementary School
Thank you.
as well.
it's a lot of info.
We have a solid 4-page survey though, right? So let's go back, as a board, are we feeling comfortable with the 4-pager? So the question would be I don't think we're asking to make a decision tonight, are we? So, any additional feedback on the 8-page? Cause you can just simply decide in a couple of weeks which one you wanna proceed with, cause we'll have them both ready.
This is extremely minor on this 8-page one. On the first page, on number 2, can you insert the word past, so it's this past spring?
Absolutely, yeah.
I know it has a word, but it really just.
No, that's a good one to be. This spring, last spring, those can be very
Exactly.
subjective things to understand, so that's a good note, thank you.
And I don't know that due to lack of having enough words or space, but it just, my question going through this is it worth at any point mentioning, you know, we found that, say, bare bones option of if we fix the bare bones of that elementary school, it was what, 22 something million, and like, I don't think it's necessarily appropriate to go in the survey, but that's what's going through my head, is if people realize to get the very basic needs of the elementary school, it's gonna be 22 million, or what is that number?
It was in that neighborhood, yeah.
I mean, there's significant work that needs to be done there, and I hope people.
I think if you as a board feel this is the right solution, we test what you believe is the right solution for the school. And if we're on the bubble with support, and we think that pulling $5 million back will potentially help us get over the bubble, that's a lever you still get to pull post-survey, pre-referendum.
Right.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, if you trim money after the survey from the plan, that's a normal thing to do, just don't add money after the survey would be my advice, that never goes well.
You don't say.
But people still do it.
These people.
We have 2 on the ballot right now.
Anything else for Scott?
No, thank you, Ralph.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you all very much, I appreciate your time tonight.
Have a good night.
You too.
I would say my question for you is, would you like Shannon and I to keep doing the work to come up with the numbers to have the operation option? Or do you prefer to stay with the 4-page? We just need direction, so we don't want to spend the time creating a plan. I mean, we can. Always.
I'm in support of this. I think, it seems like an opportune time to ask, because we all know it's looming out there at some point. And when you ask at the ballot, you don't know the outcome, and you face that freeze, and this at least helps us connect those dots a little bit better with data.
And the community is asking for transparency, so laying out the 8-page, super transparent.
I hate the idea of an 8-pager.
Yeah.
But I think we face a bigger backlash if we don't look more into that, so.
People are asking about the operating piece of it, wondering when it's coming, so they're asking.
I think it's also an opportunity for us to tell the story, because like I said, we didn't jump up and down and talk about reductions of $1.3 million. And this tells that story, that we are doing the hard work to manage the decline in enrollment and have high quality instruction and programs for kids. But then that's very skewed, because I would like to do an 8-page. I think it's the right thing to do for our community.
It's more likely that the penalty will get removed at the state level than getting enough money to make up your deficit.
Well, I mean, how much money does the state have to, additional money they have to raise to make it equal for all schools and for us to see an impact too? I mean, it's millions.
They have the money, they don't have the political will across all bodies to make it happen. Unless one party takes over all 3 offices, then maybe something changes, for the better or the worse.
Yeah, I don't know that they have all the money, but.
They have billions they're sitting on, they just have token not spending on education right now.
And that's on our reserve. There's a rainy day ahead.
So,
Yeah, please continue with the page.
So we'll see this before it goes to print though?
Oh, yeah, for
Okay.
sure, next meeting,
Okay.
because there are more decisions to be made about numbers.
Right.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Gordon.
thank you.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
having.
Thanks for making it.
Travel safe.
I will, thank you.
Anything else on facility planning? All right, item 3, administrative and department reports. A is admin reports. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, so I'm gonna start with Scott Newton. No pressure. Do you feel the same pressure I just felt?
So, just kind of from last week, busy homecoming week, students, staff, OHS, I feel like the, community was awesome, a lot of participation. And it definitely, I think, as through a week like that, it takes its toll. We had kids in the building at 6:30 practicing dances and all kinds of different things. So it's a lot of fun, but definitely I think this week we've had a little tired building. Tomorrow we have Love Green, Wyoming Tech, going to present to approximately 60 students. We identified about 60 students between our junior class and senior class as students that are interested in school to work, going right to work after graduation, and or some tech opportunities. So we have about a 45-minute presentation for both of those, for those kids that will be introduced to some job opportunities and school opportunities beyond high school. Nick Rodney, I know I talked about this last year, he's the one that's coming back to actually going to speak with their kids about Love Green, which is kind of cool to see alumni come back in the building. And we also, right now from last year's presentation, which was given to the kids, I think in April, we actually have 4 OHS students that are working for them right now, right into the program, so it's a great thing. Athletically, we are entering tournament time, believe it or not, already for the fall season. Girls tennis finished up on Monday at the sub-sectionals. Our girls golf team qualified for sectionals from last week, so it was a pretty good week for them. A lot of young kids and a lot of growth they had during the year. So, but then coming up soon now, like next week is cross-country middle-order conference, we have soccer's gonna be starting to play after 2 weeks, just a lot of moving pieces, same with volleyball. Last week on Wednesday, we also, as part of homecoming week, something we probably won't do next year, we held our Alice drill last week, we felt like we needed to get that done. But though it's a very serious event, very, the staff and students did awesome with it. Moving kids over to the middle school afterwards, and it's not a fun thing to do, but it's also something we have to do and it's important to do.
Well, Carter told me you were at the high school forever, or at the middle school,
Yeah.
forever.
I think when it's all said and done, it actually took 30 minutes only, so it wasn't
Forever.
and for me, during our wait time.
Wasn't that bad.
Well, thank you.
Freshman versus senior
Freshman
perspective.
versus senior, yes.
And so, I mean, I guess that's, and Amanda has more, but it's been a very busy start to the school year and more to come.
Thanks, Scott. Amanda?
Alright, so just some other events, we've got conferences coming up on the 23rd. Today, our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors took their pre-ACT and ACT practice tests, so we are just getting that data back this afternoon. And then Ms. Combo is hosting our blood drive on the 16th, which anyone is welcome to come to. It'll be in the auditorium this year, not in the middle school, or not in the high school gym, so you should go to the right place. And then the NHS induction is on the 21st. And then just a quick update on OBA. Right now we've got still 12th graders, we've got 8 of them, 11th grade 5, 10th grade 3, 9th grade 2, no middle schoolers, and 1 from each of the elementary and intermediate buildings. So we've dropped 3 kids, so now hopefully we'll just stay consistent here, but 3 kids.
Do they come to our school or do they leave?
1 elementary, 1 kindergartner returned in person here at Osceola, and then we had 2 high schoolers return back. That tried it for the first time and returned back. And then lastly, for me, our educator effectiveness model, we changed over to the Danielson model. It's been a lot of work for our team, and Becky's helped a lot with that. So we changed over once this year, and then we decided to change it all again. So we put in lots of extra time to do that. So we're working as a team right now to just create our documentation for that, and then be able to give feedback to teachers that's helpful to them. So lots of change over there.
One thing I'd like to add that I forgot to, with homecoming, Oscar, our student council, Mr. Leonard did a lot of work, put a lot of time in. It's a long day, but it was also a long week, but you know, they're there from Friday at 6:30 in the morning till we left at, what time back at the high school, was it midnight, give or take? So, it's a long day, like I said, the kids are still recovering, but our student council did an awesome job.
The dance went super well, so always makes me a little nervous to have a dance, but it was good. Everything was smooth.
Awesome.
Do you want us to do a presentation after middle schools, or do you want us to?
Do it now. Yeah, do it now.
Do it now?
Let's just go for it.
Okay, let's just go for it.
Unless it's on the next page, then. No, we won't.
There you go.
Thanks.
Is that okay?
How do I do this? Just this?
Yep, that's what I pushed last time.
Okay, so just kind of to give a picture of what the high school has to offer, I guess, that whole picture. So we currently have 496 students in the high school, 34 certified staff, 7 paraprofessionals, 12 support staff, 2 counselors, and 2 administrators. And then some of the offerings, obviously we have a lot of other core classes, but we have 12 advanced placement classes that we offer our students, 6 advanced standing, 6 dual credit, 36 kids that are in CAPS or youth apprenticeship. We have 24 students who are currently peer tutors and mentors. And we have 7 students working with OMC in a CNA program. That's before school starts. Every morning before school starts. It's a lot of work for those kids. We also we have 1 student in our Welding Academy. That's something that they apply for. We don't always get a student accepted in there, but we have 1 this year. We have our Start College Now programs, ECCP, and the transcripted credits. So lots of different offerings for our kids of, you know, whether that's going to work, whether that is doing something in the tech world, or whether that's going to college. One of our goals this year is attendance. So I think for all of us, attendance has been something that after COVID has been really hard to get a better hold of. There's just kind of the sense of like, well, we don't have to go to school type of a thing, and there's not really like accountability there, but there is. And so, last year, as the middle school principal, our guidance counselor at the middle school and I went to a training about attendance, and they talked about early prevention. So we implemented at the high school this year. Anyone in September who misses 3 or 4 days, they get contacted, home, and whether that's a teacher or a guidance counselor or Mr. Newton or myself, we're reaching out just as like a preventative thing, just making sure that you know that we're at 3 days already, what can we do to help to step in? So there's not like a consequence there for anyone, it's just reaching out to be proactive. We worked this summer on updating some of our letters that go home or documentation for the 5 and 10 days that happen. Working with families on how we communicate and collaborate with them after that 10-day mark before we can get to a truancy. We don't want to go to the truancy route. Sometimes we end up having to do that. We also met this summer with the village judge about his philosophy about attendance. That was kind of interesting because it always changes with whoever that judge is. So we learned a little bit about that, and just it was good to get on the same page and make a plan together. We don't always know what happens after we give a truancy referral, and so it was just nice to be on the same page. So that's something that we've been working on. We have a meeting set up with Polk County to talk about their process, because there's different processes that happen. And then a big thing for us at the high school that you don't have to worry about anywhere else is our 18-year-olds. So if they turn 18, like first semester if they turn 18, second semester, those truancy rules go away. And so how do you keep kids engaged in school after they don't feel like they need to be there anymore because they're 18? So.
And it's a bad, like, the attendance is not fun to work with, right? Because there's also, you should take family vacations, you should do those things. Parents definitely have the right to, it's their child. But we also have certain things that we have to follow from the state and what we expect here as a school district as well. And the kids in the classroom is the most important thing regarding their education. So it's always a touchy subject. And that's why I think hopefully this year, just reaching out to home in September that was definitely new this year, that hopefully it was a positive thing, because it also shows that, we're trying to create a contact with them and just communicate and kind of go from there. So we're hoping some of those things go a long ways for us to help improve some of the attendance rate. Not that it's bad, because you can see statewide, it's a huge concern, right, across the state regarding the visual truancy at attendance for students right now.
I think by you reaching out so soon, it's showing parents and kids you care and you know this, and it does show it's important. It means a lot.
Hopefully. Our current attendance rate is at 93.6%. Our goal is to maintain or increase that. I don't know if that's realistic or not, because I don't know how that progresses throughout the year, but that's our goal, is to maintain or increase that percentage.
Do you know if that's high or low for you?
We don't know.
Okay.
We tried to find that answer, because of course we want to know that information, but we don't know.
That's high for high school.
Because once a student turns 18, especially it becomes difficult.
Yeah, that doesn't, because then you need that diploma so
Mhm.
much in life, so yeah, it is, but at the same time, no, it's not, because your option is not getting a diploma and doing a GED or getting a diploma. So I hate to see somebody walk away from it, May 1st.
Yeah.
That would be hard.
Most of the time, it's the kids that are doing what they need to do to get by, even with missing days.
Yeah.
So those are the tricky ones.
Yeah.
So whatever we can do to keep them connected to school, involved in school, that's gonna help us keep those kids there every day.
And I love the communication update in September. I think the more communication you have and showing collaboration on all the levels is a positive, so.
Approximately how many students have missed 3 days in September? Do you know?
Probably about 15.
We do have that data.
Mhm.
I was just curious.
I have it right here.
I can look at it.
Well, no more than that now. This gets updated weekly, so our first couple of weeks we had and usually it's kind of the same group of people that you're hitting, so, an award for our freshmen was that they didn't have any the first 2 weeks, so that was really, really cool. But now we're probably at the end of September, we were probably at about 30 kids that hit that 3-day mark. And the 3-day mark is intentional, because if you're hitting 3 days in September, you are on track to be habitually truant, right? So that's why that number came up. Okay, so once they hit the 5-day mark, they get the warning notice from us, and then the 10-day, they get the final notice. And then we meet with them and we set up a plan and make adjustments at school if that needs to happen and stuff like that too. Okay, our next topic was our learning model and academic achievement. So, this is a hard one for us to try to wrap our heads around because there seem to be a lot of things that we want to dig into a little bit deeper, and for us as a team, this is year one. So trying to just evaluate and learn together. We are talking about our schedule. We've asked teachers to reflect upon our trimester schedule to see, is that working for us? Is it not working for us? What are the good parts? What are the parts that we need to work on? We are gonna do a little bit deeper dive into what's our tier 1 instruction. So when we're talking about English 9, what are our English 9 standards and how do we know if kids are meeting them? We do Horizon pre-ACT and ACT practice exams. So we did that today. That's down in the green boxes. It was interesting today because we had a couple of kids that got sent to us because they took the practice test in,
They were down
10 minutes.
Yeah, 4 exams in 15 minutes, so.
So, you look at our 9th graders, 108 kids were in attendance today and took the exam. 12 was the average score.
12.
12?
12
Yep, 12
out of 30.
out of 30. So, when I looked specifically at the student level, you can see that there's a lot of we just clicked through things. So there's a lot of work there. Like what is the barrier there to make sure that they're taking that seriously? Because as I know from the middle school, those kids didn't test that same way, so that's not their trend. So what made them do what they did today?
It's also remember that score is based on some instruction they haven't had yet this year.
Yeah.
So it's starting right now. We're testing again in January.
Yep.
And then we have one in March.
I can't recall, do parents or families get notice of pre-ACT scores?
Well, the kids did today, right? Kids did today.
Oh,
It was
kids
sent
did.
to them. I don't know if it was printed out last year or not.
I think the positive is, when we had our meeting today, Mr. Means says, we are gonna be all-stars at the end of this year.
Absolutely, I believe it.
We're gonna show some growth.
You're itching.
Our 10th grade, we had 109 here today. 17 was the average of 36. And our 11th grade ACT practice, 119 were here, and 20 was the average. So, and actually 20 for your average isn't a bad average for right now. So,
And so, I could say a few variables here, because the 12, the 17, the 20 is not, it's a score of 30, but I'm assuming some of the content that actually makes it on the final ACT is geared more towards high school aged learning. And is that fair to say?
Your junior, your final ACT, you're
Yeah.
saying? Yes.
Because looking at the 17 to 20 between the 10th and the 11th, saying, is that because they haven't been taught all the material that's on the test, or, you know what I mean? Whereas 9th to 10th, right, it's not the same high level, so.
It's a different assessment, right?
Yeah.
It's a different assessment, okay.
Yeah.
Geared toward that.
Got it, thank you.
But also remember, 11th graders know they're getting ready to go to college if they want to, so this is a really good opportunity for them to practice to take that test.
Yeah.
When you're a freshman thinking about that, that's, the buy-in piece is a little bit higher for your
Forever.
juniors. Not forever, right, but it definitely has a different weight about like, oh, I have to start applying to colleges, this matters.
Thank you.
okay, and then student and family engagement, that's been something that we've been working on since last spring probably, and trying to get out monthly newsletters so we can try to stay as connected. There's a lot of moving pieces at the high school. There's a lot of kind of this week, oh crap, this is happening. How do can we make this still happen this week? And we're flexible and we do those things, but trying to get out communication as proactively as possible is important. So monthly newsletters, our counselors have their counselor connection newsletter that they send out monthly as well. We're continuing to talk about extra parent sessions that we can add in. So especially that junior and senior year, as we're talking about what does post-secondary look like for your student, how can we have some better conversations with parents? But we know that not all parents come to those sessions, so we also need to do communication in other ways too. And then a big thing for I think the two of us stepping into all of these extra college offerings that we have, I've had no experience with as a teacher or a middle school principal. You probably have had a little, it's been minimal. So learning about our dual enrollment programs, and that started with 2 teachers, and then it's grown. And there hasn't been a clear process of who's the lead on this, or how do we communicate this out with parents, and so we're working with that team right now to figure out how we can communicate that better out to families. So just trying to do a lot of different things. Another goal for our counseling team is academic and career planning, kind of getting back to small group instruction with how do we read our transcript, what does our GPA mean, how do we apply for colleges, what if you don't want to go to college, like having more small group conversations about that. How do we plan out our schedule for 3 or 4 years, what does that look like for kids? So getting back to some of those processes and helping kids and families get a little bit more engaged in their high school planning and then post high school planning. Okay, and the last one, just trying to get students involved more in leadership opportunities. So we already have the mentoring program and our peer tutoring program. So currently in those 2 programs, we have 24 students, and their job is really to help in like study halls. We have a couple kids that go to the middle school to mentor other students. And this year we started adding in some other opportunities for kids where maybe we maybe would have had an adult do that position before. Now we don't have those adults anymore, so we're trying to look at how do we use the kids that we have right now and put them into these leadership opportunities. So like Holly Johnson's got a bunch of kids right now that are helping with lifeguarding. So that's been a really awesome opportunity for our kids and for our pool. The pool gets to be open more too. We have a couple of kids that are giving up their, what's the word I'm looking for here?
We had some students that were not attending because of job opportunities, and they're choosing to come back in and provide some student support services for students in the tech field. Or, for instance, even with peer mentoring, I think it's great because we have some students with IEPs that don't necessarily need pair support with them, but it's good to have some additional peer support with them. And so it's been a positive thing that we've noticed in our art class. We have a couple peer mentors in the art department. We have an tech department. We work with Mr. Miller. So they're working on small projects and having that experience and that exposure to those to the work.
And then the middle school is not able to hire one para, and so we kind of supplemented that support with high schoolers, and so that's been kind of a cool opportunity too. I think Ms. McCargo works with 6 or 7 students that come from the high school throughout the day and support her in her classroom. And I saw today in the office a new one was starting, and she had like her little to-do list and what her job description was and how she checks in every day and what she, who the kids are that she's going to be with. So kudos to the middle school special ed staff for taking on a little bit extra responsibility and having kids come into the classroom, but that's been a big support.
And some of these kids were already identified through our CAPS program for students that were interested in maybe going to be a teacher, or they're doing just working with people in general, or kids. Like for instance, I can speak for my daughter, she's looking at possible OT opportunities, but she wants to work with youth. So she's one of the individuals and working with some of the students in our department, and then that's we kind of placed kids that were at our education class last year. The other schedule was open, so we had some good connections already with some kids, and for them having some experience and interest in working with our youth.
And then we've got 2 kids who kind of help with some events at the high school, getting ready with the concession stand, just taking on some responsibilities with purchasing and stocking and inventory and all of that kind of stuff. So just a lot of different ways that we're trying to get kids engaged into some leadership opportunities. And kudos to all the adults behind all of these, because every trimester schedules change. So that means next trimester, everything that we filled this trimester has to pretty much be redone. So but it'll give other kids opportunities to do those same things. So.
Those are unique things too for some of these kids to put on their college applications.
That's that.
Questions for me?
Any other questions?
I just know, as a parent, I truly appreciate the increase in communication this past year and a half. I know our kids in high school are in high school and they're going to be adults soon and they need to learn how to be on the world, but they're not yet. So it's nice as a parent to still have that little tether.
Alright, thank you both. Darren King. I know, but I'm going in order on the sheet.
I'm gonna stand up if you don't mind.
Go for it.
Okay. All right, well, thank you for taking time to hear our goals this evening. Just gonna start with a little background about the development of these 3 goals. So, one of the books I love, it's called The Successful Middle School This We Believe. It's created by the Association of Middle Level Educators, and it talks about 3 components that you'll see. Kind of each goal starts with a component, and below that are like 6 or 7 characteristics. So what I did with teachers is I surveyed them on the 3 main components. So the first one you see up there is culture and community goal. And within that, there were about 6 to 7 characteristics. And I asked them to pick the 2 that they thought applied best to OMS. And so you can see the 2 they chose were educators respect and value young adolescents, and then the school environment is welcoming, inclusive, and affirming to all. So it's always interesting to dig into that. I didn't give you all of the characteristics under each category, but those were the 2 that, in each category, the 2 that stood out were very apparent from our staff. So the goal under culture and community that was created was OMS will ensure that 100% of our student population has a trusted adult by April of 2025. And we know at the middle level that sense of belonging is really important, that they have an adult that they can go to share concerns or problems that come up, or just to confide in. So we did a survey, and 93% of our learners at OMS listed a trusted adult. From my past experiences, this is really awesome to see. I mean, we had never reached this in all the efforts we had done in my previous middle schools. So it's a tribute to just the work our staff are doing, and just to see some of the kids that had like multiple adults they listed, other than just teachers or counselors or administrators. We also included custodians and some of our gals that are working in the kitchen and different things like that. So very, very cool to see. And of that 93%, we'll be digging into the 7% that don't have a trusted adult and be doing some work with that. I would say in a 5-8 building, when I just did a quick glance, there were more 5th graders, which you would expect, that did not have a trusted adult in the other grades. So some action steps moving forward that we are going to do to further this and move beyond this and continue to grow. Teachers using night questions at the beginning of lessons to build connections with learners. So we always talk about, the old Madeline Hunter anticipatory center, something to ignite the brains in kids to start the class. And it doesn't always have to be academic related. Sometimes it can be a connection where you start to learn more about the student and their families. Staff greetings at the door, inviting learners as they enter the classroom. We know that learners feel much more comfortable coming into a classroom where they feel like they are wanted and that they should be there. Counselor check-ins, purposeful organization of groups needing extra support. Advisee mentoring during advisory time. So meeting with the kids and talking a little bit about goals and social emotional things. 7th grade Courage Retreat. Our counselors are super excited about this. That's a community building event that they go to for a full day. And I've never been to it, so I'm excited hopefully to step out of the office and at least be able to attend that for a little bit. Strategic planning by administration and counselors to support students not identifying a trusted adult. I think that's really the important thing. Whether that's doing some check-ins with those kids, whether it's strategically placing them maybe in a different advisory, just trying to find what their interests are so that you can pair them with an adult to hopefully help them to feel comfortable. And then Amanda talked a little bit about this. This is an adult, but I love the concept of school mentors. I'm not used to that coming from a bigger district, and in a smaller district, I think it's so awesome to have high school kids coming over. And Lisa Stoppmore told me that in the past, the greatest amount we had were like 12 to 13 high school mentors. That's what she told me. And we're around 22, and I think it's continuing to grow. So that's great. So that's the first one. Second one, leadership and organizational goal. So the 2 characteristics that were selected by staff, Policies and practices are student-centered, unbiased, fairly implemented. Organizational structures foster purposeful learning, meaningful relationships. The goal OMS will ensure a 5-to-1 ratio of positive pride awards, 2 corrective stop and think tickets through the school year, while recognizing students with weekly awards. And yes, this is also, I would say, a climate and culture builder, but I think there was a lot of detail that went into the organization of this and the setup. I know Brian Marks has spent a lot of time organizing this, connecting with one of my tech guys from the previous school that I worked at. And I think it's been going really well. And we do lots of reminders about just finding joy in your day and recognizing kids for the wonderful things they're doing. Some of our current data there, and this was, I think on Monday I pulled this, we had 237 Pride Awards. So that means that emails are going out to those parents. The stop and think tickets are the corrective kind of minor behavior tickets that we have. And those also go out to parents, and that was a 24. So our current ratio is close to 10-to-1. Now my experience with PBIS is this ratio will get smaller and smaller, okay, as the year goes. You have the winter doldrums, you have the tough times, you have, it's just, you know, January and February, so we've got to find joy and we've got to be recognizing kids and stay positive. So right now we're close to 10-to-1 and we hope to keep that. Ideally, in a perfect world, PBIS would say you try to be 5-to-1 with every student. So that's something moving forward too, those reminders for some of those kids that may struggle a little bit more. They need more positives than some of the other kids, so trying to provide that through that avenue. All right, action steps moving forward. So consistency is important. We do Monday announcements recognizing Pride Award winners. Picture is submitted to social media. So from the week prior, we select 2 per grade, and that's just randomly done off of our spreadsheet. We have them come up to the office. They have a cart that has awards on it, so they get a bunch of different selections of what they want. And then Kristen Boylo takes a picture and then she sends it off to social media. So it's a fun experience. It's a great way to start the week. Lots of smiling faces coming in the morning. Grade level teams recognizing a student of the quarter. So as we get to the end of the quarter, we'll be doing that. Beginning staff meetings with positive recognition of students. Many times our staff meetings begin with the first few minutes, I want you to fill out a pride ticket. I want you to think of a kid that needs some support and you can recognize a wonderful thing that they had done. So a lot of times we'll start a meeting with that. Monthly updates, that's really important as we go through the year. We break down the number of pride tickets compared to those corrective stop and thinks. We can break it down by grade level, which you can about guess that the 8th grade teachers, we continue to build them up and want them to fill out pride tickets, because many times in the 5th grade there'll be a lot more of that than there is with 8th grade. So continuing to have those discussions, we can break that down by male and female if we need to. So that also becomes part of our huddle team meetings where we can dig into that. So if a kid is having some behavior issues, one of the things we will look at is that data. And that data could be the stop and think. Are there minor behaviors? Have those been dealt with? Have parents been communicated? Also, is this a kid that's getting anything positive? You know, are they getting any pride awards during the day? So trying to build on that positive, finding the good of the student. With these electronic boards, we're increasing family communication, which is important. And then I think it's also very important for myself as an administrator and our office staff to be modeling this. So we have what we call a WAG that we send out weekly, has all the vital information. And then we also include staff shout outs where staff are recognizing each other for the wonderful things they're doing. So that's a little bit about that goal. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay. The next one has a lot of data here. So I guess what I'm going to try to do is simplify it as much as I can, because it's pretty weighty and I don't want to spend too much time with it. But Curriculum instruction assessment goal. Educators are specifically prepared to teach young adolescents and possess a depth of understanding in the content areas they teach. Health, wellness, and social emotional competence are supported. Curricula, school-wide programs, or related policies. So that's what staff selected. So our goal for assessments is that we will increase the median percentile score on the NWA math from fall to winter by 6% in math and 2% in reading for all grade levels. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with NWEA map testing, so I'm just this is some previous data that I will talk about. So the map test is an adaptive test, and I am by no means an expert on it, so I'm just sharing what I do know. It's an adaptive test, so what that means is it adapts to how you're doing. So if you are getting most of the problems right, it gets more and more difficult. If you are struggling to answer them right, it gets easier, okay? It's a growth test. So the first part here, I'm just gonna walk up here so I can show you. This is just the math data from 23-24. Now remember, this is a 6-8 building last year. So this is 6-8 data. So in the fall, this was the test results, and they have it broken into quintiles, which the red is like 0 to 20th percentile. This is 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80, and 80 to 100. So what it does is you get a RIT score, and then it assigns a percentile. So based on the school results in the fall last year, their median score was the 65th percentile. And this, the scores are compared to kids of the same age across the nation. So there's about I think it was 2 million kids test using NWA math. So it norms with other kids around Wisconsin, Minnesota, as well as the nation. Okay, so that's kind of how it fits it in. So this is the fall achievement for math to the median achievement in the winter. So you can see there was an increase of 4 percentiles. And remember, this is the median, so the hope is when you look at a median, you are moving both ways. If I'm looking here to the right, which is the way you're going to increase that. So that's math. Here's our reading. Now it says a 0% increase, but you have to remember this is growth. So this is comparing to the nation how the kids are growing of the same age and looking at their same scores. So this doesn't mean the kids didn't grow. This means from here to here, they grew similarly to the rest of the kids in the nation. This means we grew at a higher rate because we were able to move the needle a little bit compared to the others in the nation. So there's a lot of complex data with math, but I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of where that came from. So here's our current data. So we actually have the addition of the 5th grade here now. This is based on the whole school. And again, it has a division. Here's these percentile keys I was talking about. So you can see grade 5, grade 6, grade 7, and grade 8. Anybody recognize anything there? Mm-hmm. What do you see?
Well, growth is what I see. Because this corner from this corner, as they're progressing through age.
So this is our fall assessment, and I mean, this is pretty impressive when you see it going this way where you have your 8th grade. Mm-hmm. You have many in that 60 to 80 and 80 to 100 percentile. This shows us we have lots of opportunities to support our kids, right? That's the way we need to look at it. So that is the math data from the fall. This is the reading data from the fall. So you can see our average percentile median value is the 57th percentile. So our goal is we're gonna increase that median percentile score in the NWA map, so I figured if we can try to increase that by 2% in math and 2% in reading. And remember, that is growth above and beyond what the rest of the kids in the nation are experiencing. So this goal also is dependent on scores from other students when you look at the data. So some of our action steps, solid tier 1 instruction with students understanding the learning targets of the lesson. Had lots of discussions about visual learning objectives and targets. Many of us are visual learners. I think it's important to have that either displayed in their slideshow or up on a board so that when kids are going through the lesson, they have something also to revisit and look at and know what their expectation for understanding is. Staff collaboration to provide interventions for learners during win time using multiple data points. So we do not have an interventionist at the middle school. So this was a big change for our teachers this year. The teachers are the ones that are going to be doing the interventions. And we work with that within the system we have, and we encourage it. And we had a wonderful in-service, them collaborating, sitting down and looking at some of that data I was showing you and concentrating on those first two quintiles, so like 0 to 40% for the percentile, were the kids that we are looking at some of those tier 2 interventions and tier 3 interventions. So it was wonderful to see staff collaborate like that and think about their learning opportunities, because it's going to be different. They're not used to this. You know, yes, they've done some intervention work within their classroom, but having designated groups where they can't depend on somebody else to provide the intervention is a little bit of a change. Also considering the whole child and planning interventions. So we have kids during our win time. Remember, we have band, we have choir, and then we have kids that need some academic support in both math and language arts. So just thinking about, we have to have fun. Our kids need to enjoy school. It's really important. We can't wrap them up in an intervention 5 days a week so they never get to experience anything else. So just having those discussions, talking about scheduling, making sure that we are communicating with band and choir. If we have a kid that is really in need of 2 interventions in math and language arts, maybe doing 1 in math the first 6 to 8 weeks so they still are only tied up 2 to 3 days so they can do something fun or do something else they choose. Remember, it stands for what you need, so we want to give them some voice in that too, and then maybe doing the reading intervention the second 6 to 8 week time period. So just having those discussions and asking teachers to look at things through a different lens, whether it's the lens of a child or it's the lens of a band teacher. So we had some good work with that. Staff observations promote growth and self-reflection. Our staff are learning software, and I know they did some work with MobiMax last year, learning some with FastBridge so they understand how to progress monitor if they are doing a tier 3 intervention. Some of this is new, and so they've taken it on and we're working through it and maybe stepping through some of this, but we're getting there. Intervention letters we just sent out to parents for any kid that's getting an intervention, so they are aware, and also included in that letter is how do you support your child at home. So there's some recommendations about like logging into MobiMax, reading with your child, different things like that. And then also including extensions in win time. Some of that, being able to extend the content, critical thinking. If you have a kid that's passionate about a subject, helping them excel in that beyond maybe what you're just doing in the classroom. So I apologize, I know that was a little bit long. Do you have questions?
Work ahead.
We do it. Lots of opportunities for growth. That's
Yeah.
good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Alright. Julie. Oh my goodness, I had to wait so long to be able to talk to you guys. Whew. I did my building report one time, a couple weeks ago, so I just have a few things here. October is National Bullying Prevention Month, so we are hitting that pretty hard within the 2 buildings.
working through a new resource of Character Strong. They just completed a whole entire section within that resource of bullying prevention. And it hits kids from 4K to 4. So it's really a great resource, and it's showing and teaching the teachers on what to say, and really students, for if they are outside on the playground, for example, and they're around students being mean to someone. It's like, what can they do? Don't just sit there. Like, say something, do something, get an adult. So just trying to make sure that we are really teaching those strategies and bringing things forward and getting adults involved. So we were able to compare like our bullying policy and how we move forward with like the discipline and the consequences for that compared to what Character Strong suggests, and it mirrors pretty good. So we're excited about that. So far this year, like, we haven't had to move forward with any true investigations. Yes, we're only a month in, but kids are mean, so we want to do whatever we can to have kids step up and squash that. And it happens as soon as 4K. These little ones running around being mean to each other. So just, we want to squash it, and that's a huge piece for us in both buildings. Today we practice Alice at OIS. Tomorrow it is at OES. So looking at it very different with our school safety this year, and just making it as age appropriate as we can. So for you guys and your enjoyment, I linked some things in there for you if you want to look at what the teachers presented to students. I'm also sending it home to, like, today it was all sent home to the intermediate school. Families tomorrow it will be for the elementary school, but tying in just some different literature and books about Alice and about what it means. And really it's you're making your decision. Like, what are you going to do to stay safe if something were to happen, if a crisis were to happen. So it went pretty good today for the intermediate school. I made the announcement, of course, it's a drill, and that the intruder was in the main office. So being able to see how the students and teachers were able to react to that, overall they did a nice job. Now staff are reflecting with a survey and coming together, and then we talk about it as adults of, okay, if we had to do this again with the exact same scenario, would you change what you just did? So, we'll do the same thing tomorrow at the elementary school. And then speaking of the elementary school and safety pieces, I linked in there, April's gonna pull it up for you guys. I am not Hunter, I'm not Bob, but I can show you some pictures. So here's what we have right now at the elementary school as we have moved forward with a secure entrance. Now when I say secure entrance, really it should be like a mini secure entrance, because this is not at all mirroring any of the other buildings, but it is so much better than what it was before. So you can see the same, adults have to buzz in. Okay, the only change there is we got a big sign. And then as you go down, once you buzz in, the second set of doors are locked, and we now have a window right here. It's sliding glass where Holly and Kelly can talk with whoever is in that vestibule area. And so far, like, there's been zero that I know of. There's been zero complaints from any adult or visitor or parent coming into the building. They do their thing right through that window if they're dropping off a lunch or bringing shoes, something a student forgot, or they're just even there to pick their child up early. They just wait there. Nobody's been huffy with Kelly or Holly trying to say, like, let me in. Like, it's been great. I think parents are actually appreciating that. And then you can see there's a barn board behind there to make it a little extra secure at night, just because, I mean, that glass, a little poke, and that's probably out.
A what?
Just a little poke from somebody, and they could probably get into the.
She's saying that there's a slide.
Yeah, see the barn board right there? So that's okay. So that's extra security at night, like when they leave the office.
Got it.
For the different community events and things that happen in the elementary school, just keeping it a little more secure at night. So Bruce enjoyed putting that together.
Yay, Bruce.
Yay, Bruce. Okay, so now this is just showing that this is new. So these doors were always here, but now they remain locked. So we were able to put a fob there for staff coming in, and then these remain locked at all times. So that's where parents cannot get by right there, and that's our little vestibule right now, making it a secure entrance. So if a parent does need to get in for some reason, like, all we have is a sign once you walk in, like the office is right to your left, but that part, I mean, like the other buildings, they're in. Like, once they would get past these doors, they would be in. But it's locked, it's different, and it's really positive right now. So I just wanted to show you guys that if you haven't been at the elementary school, that those are the things that we've been working on. And then the next doors are our kids club doors, and that would be happening by Thanksgiving, I believe Carlene and Hunter have told me. So this is what it looks like from inside looking out. Those are the ones that are locked. So just wanted to show you.
Thank you.
And then yeah, the last thing, parent-teacher conferences are coming up here in October, so we're preparing for that along with the book fair. The book fair will be at the intermediate school, and then later in November at the elementary school. So that's what I have.
Questions for Julie? All right. Shannon?
Just a couple more pieces that, information we're getting to complete this year's budget. So the Department of Revenue put out those equalized values that we talked a little bit about earlier. We projected a 4% based off of their model originally. They came in at 9.18%, so that's what drove that mill rate down a little bit more. October 15th will be that final piece of the puzzle where we will get the equalized aid value on that revenue limit, and then we can put all those pieces together. Again, we're still waiting on information on that biennium budget. Tomorrow I have a board of directors meeting with WASBO. Sometimes they give a little bit more insight, but that's what Dr. Stiles said. It's looking like a big push on that 60% funding for SPED, which is great. We'll take that. And then maybe some small modifications on the low revenue ceiling on the rep limit, but that's about it. No talk of increases on a per pupil aid basis. Nothing to that effect.
Okay. Dr. Stiles?
As you've probably felt and heard and seen, that October is school safety month around here, so we do a lot of pieces. If you could click on the hold in place that's linked under our mind. And also in the demonstration of learning and growing, we're always learning and growing in our jobs. And when you hear the administrators talk about Alice, right, that's, as Julie described, you're figuring out what's best safe for you. But we also have situations in the school district where we need to hold in place. And they're listed on here, but I wanted to show this to you because, as you know, you see the safety plan and you approve it for 3 years. So this is going to be an addition. So we've met as a team. We did a lot of words. What do we want to call this? Because it's not a lockdown. And it is a literal hold in place because it could be a medical emergency. If a kid's having a seizure in the hallway, you don't want other kids to come in the hallway. So we may announce that. It may be just a maintenance issue. I don't know, you spill something. When we had drug dogs in the past, you don't want kids out walking around in the hallways. You can scroll just a little bit. Or if there's something going on with law enforcement, we may just have, because the buildings are secure. You'll remember they're all locked anyway. So in the old days, we would have to say secure the building. Well, the building is secure. It's just a matter of having everybody hold in place. And so then we created a little checklist. We have the announcements, there's emails, and then please know when situations like this happen, we are a team. So we communicate with each other, but also there isn't somebody sitting there waiting to communicate. So the intent is to communicate with families as quickly as we can. We recognize, in particular at the high school level, kids have phones. So teaching also the students about what hold in place means. Because it's not a high risk, it's something that's happening within the building. It could be a student that's dysregulated, and we just want everybody to make sure that they are safe in their room, they continue doing the work, lights aren't going off, we're still operating, but if the bell rings, you're not letting kids out either. So, right, that's the one difference that it would be, because sometimes things happen during passing time, and we need to make sure we have time to clean that up. But just wanted you to know, and those of you who've been around for a long time will remember, before we went Alice, we had a code word. Do you remember what it was? Have you been in the district long enough? Remember? Do you remember? Bucky is missing.
Bucky is
missing. Used to say. Yes. Yeah, Bucky is missing. So hold in place is the only deviation in language away from Alice. But we want it to be very, very different. It's not a drill. It's hold in place, and then there's an announcement and thanking the students and moving forward. So, any questions on that?
It's really an interesting parallel to the medicine world, because when I call different codes in a hospital setting, there's oftentimes I have to do hold in place. So if it's a psychiatric patient that's trying to escape and they're behind the door, and you call a code, everybody comes rushing in to help. Well, that defeats that whole purpose. So I've never thought about it in similar parallels. but it is an interesting thought because it's a different skill set of holding in place, just being aware that something is happening and you may not know what, but we all just need to be staying where we are and being on high alert.
And again, we learned,
Yep.
because when we had a hold in place happen without the words, it became all these other things. So now we have the words to wrap around it, and we can make sure that everybody's aware.
Strongly.
And yeah, that was really positive. And lastly, we have state report card data. It's secure, so we can't share it with anybody. And I just wanted to make sure that we remember we had that data error last year where we had 139 students. So if you go into Wise Gash Public and you look at our enrollment, it actually shows 139 students less than what we actually have. There's a little letter that's attached in there. Well, now we have to fix all of our state report cards because they pull right from that data. Now, all those kids were tested, so please don't think 139 kids didn't test, but the enrollment data is up here. So it's a little bit frustrating. I'm being a bit of a squeaky wheel, but I need to be careful, so, right? Because like, just fix it, because this is always going to be an issue. You're going to talk about it at the annual meeting. So anytime we pull enrollment, that year will show that we had that many less kids, and that's not accurate. So you can thank April and Brian. They went through 1,502 kids to try to find these kids, and then we had to figure out why. We know 137 of them have been open enrolled into our district, and there was something, but there's 2 others that have been residents who we don't know why. So we are doing the work. Later you'll hear about our third Friday count. April has already connected with Brian to make sure his snapshot is looking similar so that our Skyward is speaking, because remember there's data that's directly pulled and then there's data that's put in. The data that's put in is how we get funding. So yes, we get funding for those students, but this is still showing public facing. So just wanted to let you know. So we will submit an inquiry for every single one of our district and building report cards, and then we have to list which kids, and hopefully they'll go into our report cards because they don't have to fix it.
Questions for Dr. Strauss? Alright, that brings us to item B, quarterly budget update for 24-25.
Seems kind of funny to be talking about a quarterly budget update when we really have to set the budget, because that's just the way that the funding mechanism works in the state of Wisconsin. But from a fiscal year perspective, we have finished the first quarter. That would have ended September 30th for us. So this is just our check-in for what we've set for this year's budget. Again, there will be tweaks on this based off of the information that comes on October 15th. But this is again just a look at actual expenses to what's been what we consider a working budget until we finalize it. You're not going to glean a lot of information from this at this point, just because it is very early in the budget cycle or the budget year. We typically start looking harder at this about mid-year, when you're about halfway through, seeing those trends of 50% to budget or over, and diving deeper. Some things that we would utilize this for is, are things coded properly? If there's a revenue that shouldn't have any money in there right now, why is there something in there? And making sure that we're applying all of our money we're receiving in with the correct coding, because the state also looks at that. So from a revenue perspective, especially, there's hardly anything that we've received yet. First amount of equalized aid payments do not come out, I believe, until December. So that's when you'll start seeing that. The other payments then happen in the second half of the year. From an expense side, there is more data, if you want to scroll down, April. But again, not really gleaning a lot of information because we only have 3 months worth of expenses under our belts so far.
Questions for Shannon? Okay, thank you, Shannon. That brings us to item 4, which is aligning, developing, and supporting our staff review, staff handbook. We're gonna push this to the next committee meeting. And so we will review it at the next meeting or committee meeting to be determined. So in the essence of time, let's take 10 minutes for a recess, and we'll reconvene